Hello all, this is the review for episode 136, The Mudstone Abyss Part 2, which begins with the line, "Age is just a number that counts quickly upward to an ending point." Of course, very creepy coming out of Kevin's mouth. There's quite a few things in this episode that I wanted to mention. First is that Charles, who is Desert Bluff's version of Carlos, is quite a bit different from Carlos, despite how similar they act and sound. I'm not sure if it's actually the same voice actor or not. It could be. The fact that Charles has a kid and Kevin's not really about that is going to be a very interesting difference, and I wonder where they're going to go. I hope nothing happens to that kid because I wouldn't put it past Kevin to remove something that he doesn't like about his partner. Um, Kevin says Kevin worships a smiling god now. In fact, he's like a priest or something. But he says that both he and Charles were raised in the arboreal faith. Um, does this have something to do with Desert Bluffs' version of the Whispering Forest, maybe? Or do they have that? I'm not sure that they have analogs for everything that's in Night Vale, or just the people. So I don't know if that was a throwaway line or a reference. We get that Kevin's smile can make glass explode, so be careful with that. He's got supernatural powers. We get the Sandy Blossom Bowling Alley and Arcade Joy compound, which is their version of the Desert Flower Arcade Bowling and Fun Complex. But I'm wondering, is there a miniature Desert Bluffs in there? Because in a lot of ways, this episode is kind of mirroring some of the early Night Vale episodes. But the multiverse crisis has kind of ended, so maybe that's not the case anymore. Desert Bluffs also has a beach, aka waterfront, with no water. But that's okay, because as Kevin says, there's sand. It's just the water's far away. I really like the way language was broken down in this episode. It was done really well. The voice actors did a good job of selling it like it was really like a problem they were having, especially when it happened to Kevin. He started to like completely stumble and get frustrated. Also interesting that he owned a hat that allowed Charles to leave the voicemail in a mostly understandable way. Could be an important plot point, could just be the way they needed to do it because they wanted the voicemail to be left in a way we could understand it. The weather was great, although was it the weather? Because I think this is the first time they didn't actually say the word weather before playing it since language was messed up. So I guess the petroleum was perfect then. I do prefer music with either no lyrics or lyrics I don't understand when I'm listening to the podcast, just because I like it to be kind of a break in my thinking. Charles's message makes me think that Desert Bluffs is kind of like super behind Night Vale when it comes to like timeline, if that makes sense, because he just got there, which Carlos had just got there at the very beginning of the series in Night Vale. And it's the same format as Carlos's original message. Like it kind of even enunciates things the exact same way. Way back when he was trying to tell Caesar that time didn't work in Night Vale. Things are also still reversed though, because in Night Vale, Cecil and Carlos weren't an item then, but in Desert Bluffs, Charles and Kevin have already met and are together. So things are happening in a different order for sure as well. Charles gets visited by one of the unclean souls from the Mudstone Abyss, whereas in this scene in Night Vale, Carlos had been visited by the man in the tan jacket. The man in the tan jacket ended up being like kind of a good guy. We're not sure. He was hanging around with the Apache tracker who ended up being a good guy. So like, are these spirits likewise benevolent, or is it turned around since this is Desert Bluffs and they're actually malicious instead? I don't know, but I'm excited to see the conclusion of the storyline, finds out what happens with Kevin and Charles, and if the Mudstone Abyss is going to be sealed, or if it will be a problem that Night Vale has to face later. So we'll see.